Awesome. So, Tommy, thanks for having me here, and thanks for lending the venue.
Welcome to Howl2Go.
So, I want to get into Howl2Go and your role in the organization, but one of the things that I learned recently is that your start in this business was actually behind me on one of these.
That's right.
One of these pianos back here. Would love to know a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, trade secret. These aren't real pianos. These are facades. A lot of people come in here thinking these are the real deal. There's no strings in here. They're electric. They're wooden boxes, but they do the job.
I love it.
And yeah, you can stand on them, pour drinks on them. It's going to be fine.
And I guess all the above has happened
and
at some point.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I came in here in, I think around 2007, and I'd already been playing a similar dueling piano show around the country, and I kept hearing about this chain of clubs called Howl2Go, and I came in to check it out, and it was certainly elevated from anything I'd seen before. The musicians were incredible. The changing of everyone played every instrument on stage. They had a huge repertoire and a great crowd every night. It was a 7-night-a-week club.
Yeah.
Like nothing I'd seen before. So my next phone call was asking if I could get an audition. So
yeah, I will say so I've been a patron here numerous times. It feels like and I know you are across the country, but I associated with Chicago since that's where I'm from, and we're right in the middle of Hubbard Street, kind of where a lot of the action is, and it's always a packed house. So yeah, awesome. Well, cool. So started in the business. Now you work on the business.
That's right.
And with that being said, you're focused specifically on Howl2Go.
Yes.
Would love to know a little bit about that business, how it plays in with kind of the overarching Howl brand. And if you're up for it, how it came to be.
Sure. Absolutely. I think there was always a demand. Like you said, we're national. There's Howl2Go's all over the country. There's this great spot right here. I think unknowingly, to me at least, there was a lot of demand for this same sort of show for events, whatever they might be, corporate entertainment, weddings, fundraising events, birthday parties, all that sort of stuff. And people would come in and see that and say, that looks really fun. But there was no option to export that show into a different space. And we had some conversations, and it seemed like something we were missing. So I was tasked with seeing what we come up with and see if we could put this thing on the road. And my background was playing in bands, traveling around, playing different venues, and moving productions into a space. So I took what I knew from that and tried to make this mobile version of what it was, whilst retaining the energy, what made Howl2Go special, which are the performers, the production, the experience, the ambience that this place has. Yeah. So we went full on. Yeah.
And so, about timeline-wise, about when did Howl2Go start up? And would love to know some of I could imagine trying to recreate this in some of the venues that you might have been going to. Some of those might be easy. Some of those might be extremely challenging.
Sure.
And I would imagine that what it was then might be a little bit different than what it is today. So starting with kind of timeline-wise, when about did this come, and what are some of the big changes you've seen over the years?
Gosh, you got to think back. So we did sort of a test run, if you like, right at the end of 2013, that last quarter of 2013. And we gave it a few months to see if there was the interest we believed there was, whether it was practical, whether it was viable, whether we could indeed recreate what we've got here. And we tried it. And at the end of 2013, I think that's when we all agreed, like, let's dig in and make this work. So I think that was the point where I left the club as a performer at the end of 2013. And
so you were still doing gigs
at
the time again that started up.
Yeah, so I was playing here during the weeknights, and then weekends would come along and I'd be off playing Howl2Go events with a
and booking the shows.
And booking them. Yeah, I was collaborating with someone from the marketing team here, the sales team, and yeah, we were just feeling our way along. We had nothing really to base the operation on. We didn't really want to copy what had gone before. We really wanted to take it in our own, make it our own, and do it in our own way, which I think is what Howl at the Moon has also done.
Yeah.
In this field. So yeah, we didn't look to emulate anybody. We were like, let's do it our way.
That's incredible. And so, so kind of following that timeline, and at one point, the fella getting it started, booking the shows and performing, right? Also, not to mention the day job, performing on stage every night, which can be tiring on its own. What does Howl2Go look like now? How many musicians are in it? Are you using people from your establishments, the same crew? Would love to just kind of learn about that. Yeah,
well, looking back, we average about 600 individual events each year.
Holy cow.
Yeah, yes. It wasn't, we never saw it getting, I don't think we could have dreamed it becoming that big. And we attach a Howl2Go hub to pretty much every Howl at the Moon location has an associated hub, which consists of dedicated production. So we don't rent or borrow or anything. All our equipment is ours. We maintain it. Just like we do in all the clubs. It's the closest we can get to this whole rig that will still fit in a truck.
Yeah.
And we can move it. And overall, yeah, we will often be doing 10 to 12 shows on a weekend night nationally, all going up at the same time.
Wow.
So I think the biggest challenge was logistics, sort of feeding that information out to multiple people.
Sure.
Each show has 3, 4, 5 musicians or production crew involved. So it's a lot of timeline planning. What door do you go in when you get to the Hilton in Boston?
Right.
There's lots of doors. There's lots of loading docks. Which one do you need? Which level in the elevator are you meant to go to? Who do you tell you're there? What ballroom is it? What, you know? So logistics is really what it comes down to. We know the music's going to be good. Yeah. We're fine. The show's great because it's coming from the club. So that's the part I've never had to worry about.
Right.
No one's ever come back and said the music wasn't very good. It's consistently people know what they're getting and they get it. The logistics was something we really had to build out and learn.
That is interesting. So, and are you bringing the piano boxes with, or?
Yeah.
Really? So this whole kind of setup comes along. That is.
We have a fantastic company that build them for us, actually, and we have them in different sizes, so we can expand, make best use of the performance space we get. Sometimes we'll be tucked in a corner, in a tiny little space, so we'll use the smaller piano shells.
Sure.
Other times we're at House of Blues in any city, or we're given these huge spaces. We just played the Blackhawks game. Yeah, we did the Dallas Blackhawks game.
At the stadium?
Yeah, in the arena.
Oh, that is awesome. We're like on the ice or?
Right up above they built a stage for us and in the intermission, or whatever you call it. I'm not sure in hockey. They built these big platforms for our pianos to go, and we played some songs and had the crowd singing. And we played in the atrium prior to the game too. So we had 2 parallel rigs running. We had 2 lots of pianos on 2 different stages, and we went between the 2 stages. So we can expand or sort of contract to whatever performance size we have.
That is so cool. So we talked a little bit about this before. I am also a performing musician, a little more amateur than you are. But one of the always interesting things to me is you're looking to, you show up kind of under one pretense, then you learn who your crowd is, right? And being yourself and your team being professionyou I would have to imagine that the different types of events, and maybe that's where my question is going. What are some of the events that you have been hired for that are kind of common? And if there's a story out there without naming names, has there ever been a situation where you show up and the room's flooded and half the people are absent and it just wasn't what you expected?
Sure. I think there's a lot of music that's universal and everyone enjoys. I mean, think of any wedding band. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We just want to
Sure.
play music that people love and enjoy and can connect to, no matter your age or where you're from. Or there's a lot of that music out there that people just connect with and will react to. And that's generally what we keep very close to. And even though it's an all request show, so everybody at every show will tell us what songs they want to hear, and they'll bring it up to the stage. It's unusual that they go too left field. You know, they really, it's a great, I don't want to say illusion, it's a great reaction when someone comes up, puts a song in front of us, and we then perform it. I mean, that's the magic.
Right.
Truth be told, 80% of the time, it's a song we played last night. You know, you're not, and often, if it really is an out there song, a real deep cut, something maybe we've never heard or we have heard, but it's not a song that we think is going to connect. I mean, what are we serving there in terms of the show?
Right.
Like, how deep cut? Will everybody enjoy it, or will just the one guy?
Right.
Like, yeah.
What do you do in that situation?
We play something else by the same artist generally.
Oh, that's a good call. So I've always wondered this too, as a guest at your establishment. How many songs are in the back pocket of your musicians?
What a great question. I think every individual performer has their own wheelhouse.
Okay.
Based on what they grew up with, the music, their age, where they grew up, and what they enjoy listening to.
Yeah.
And I think the combination of all those different elements on the stage allows you to have the fullest, biggest repertoire possible. I'm very much a classic rock guy. I grew up with my family listening to Queen, listening to Rolling Stones, listening to Fleetwood Mac, listening to, that stuff. And so I can pretty much call up any of those songs, but someone on stage who is younger or grew up somewhere else, maybe they've got the pop stuff down, or the hip hop stuff down, and so between the two of us, now we have a good combination.
So are there moments there where one person really knows and it's like, kind of follow me along, and you tell them what key it's in and kind of play? Is that going on a lot up there? Because it never feels like it in the audience.
No, and I'm glad it doesn't feel like that in the audience. I mean, there's a couple of cues, you get the wide eyes, and you're just like, but yeah, I think the musicianship is always good enough that you follow along, even if it's a song. I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know this. But you figure out a way of just staying out of the way musically, but also giving something. And it's still a performance, so you've got a whole crowd who's looking at you. So if they're busy playing and singing, there's something else for the other musician to be doing.
That's awesome. Yeah. So this might get into Howl2Go, the establishments as well, because I know you use a lot of the same musicians, it sounds like. Right. Yeah. How does one audition for this gig? And what are you looking for? Are they coming? They go, hey, I know Piano Man, and the top 10 songs that people would assume. Are you hiring the person because they know Marilyn Manson, and now you can expand your repertoire? What does that look like?
Well, that's a really great question. Yeah. I mean, that's, I think, what sets us apart from other live music bars, piano bars, whatever, is that we're all here full time. We're all in-house. We're all employees, which is a word that scares most musicians. Yeah. It's great, and so the quality control, if you like, or the consistency of all the Howl at the Moon universe shows is very, very consistent. In terms of auditioning, that's a brilliant question. So I think primarily vocally, you have to be strong, because that's what your crowd are actually tuned into. So I think if you're a weak vocalist but a strong instrumentalist, the instrumental stuff goes unnoticed. Sure. Because you're singing the whole show. Right. You've got to be able to harmonize, blend with other vocalists. You've got to be able to lead a song. And you're replicating songs from great vocalists. Right. We're doing a Bruno Mars song or a John Bon Jovi song, or, you could pick any of them. These are singers, so you can't just go and cough your way through it. Can't sound like karaoke. Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, for sure. And then I think secondarily, but really important, is your confidence on an instrument at least one instrument. And I think if you have a solid grounding in piano or an understanding of chords and all that stuff, then you can relatively, with some work, move over to the other instruments on the stage.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people come to us to audition who are already strong vocalists with being able to function on a piano and then an additional instrument.
Yeah.
But I think that's hopefully, why I passed the audition, because I could function on a lot of the instruments on the stage.
Makes a lot of sense.
From my background, yeah.
How, and just out of curiosity, is there a line out the door of people trying to get in here to be musicians? I'll tell you, as a musician, I'm somewhat intimidated by it.
Oh.
But I remember when I was, anytime I watch a show, I picture I could do that better, or you process it, right?
Sure.
And I always have respect for whatever is being performed because they are performing. And I tell you, you come here, and it's like, holy cow!
Right.
How much practicing these guys doing? These folks, sorry, and like, I don't know if I can remember all those words. It's just like, it seems like a top tier type of performance. So my question comes back to, how eager are folks? How many people are kind of coming in here to audition? Is that an open cast that's always happening, or is it hard to find folks that want to do this level of performance?
Sure. It's constantly an ongoing process. There's always, we open new venues frequently around the country. Howl2Go is always expanding. Our Howl at Sea shows, we're on Norwegian Cruise Lines.
That's right.
Yeah, we have a lot going on. We've got, we're off right now on a different cruise line doing a spring break student party. Sounds wild. Week-long cruises out there. So we're always growing, we're always expanding. So we're always keeping our talent fresh. I think this gig is very much on its own in many ways. It's not like joining a wedding band,
right,
where you rehearse the songs, you play your one instrument, you learn the songs, you go and put your tux on and go play the wedding.
Right.
I'm not sure if musically this is the toughest gig out there, but the stamina required is something that you might only find on a Broadway style stage. That sort of having to keep healthy, having to go out there. These shows last 7 or 8 hours.
Right.
So by the end of the night,
I said right, of course, I had no idea. 7 or 8 hours?
Yeah. They'll open at 6 and run through till 2 a.m. So
unbelievable.
You got to be as ready and as willing to perform as you were at the beginning of the night. So that takes, I think the toughest bit perhaps is the vocal stamina, physical stamina of doing that. That's the bit I think maybe people auditioning, sitting out here, it's like, oh, I can play piano, man. I can play, that Lady Gaga song.
Right.
It's like there's so much more to it. That's, I think, the easy bit.
I can't get over 8 hours.
Yeah.
I like typical for me be like an hour, and we're like, oh, let's play this song twice.
Sure. With a team. So we have a rotating cast in the club.
Yeah.
For Howl2Go, we generally do a 3-hour straight continuous show. No breaks, no stopping. That just seems to be the sweet spot for events we found, just to experience. 7 till 10, 8 till 11. That's the point where people are most engaged and most active, in the show. Anything more than that, people start looking at the watches. People have got babysitters. So we think about 3 hours is what we try, and we encourage our clients just to do a straight shot, not interrupt the show when it's going. So we're not restarting with a cold room.
That is absolutely stamina. And there's I'd love to talk a little bit about what that experience is, because I think I mistakenly made the assumption that everyone has seen a Howl at the Moon show, whether it being in one of the clubs or being at one of the events that you've done. But walk me through what a typical 3-hour set looks like.
Well, like you said earlier, there isn't really a typical 3-hour set because it totally depends on the event, the venue. We'll often, if it's a corporate style show, it may be that the guests have sat through an endless awards ceremony and then had a huge dinner, and they're there under duress.
Right. Right.
So that's a whole different start. We're going to have to grab these people and really prove our worth, so they don't say, all right, 8 o'clock, I can go now.
Right.
They want to stay and enjoy the show, be part of the show.
What are some of the things that play into that scenario? So how do you earn them at the beginning?
That's a steady balance, a tricky balance to achieve, because you can think, I'm going to hit this crowd hard, and they're going to love it, but it might just flatten them against the back wall. You know, as they leave, they might not be expecting that or willing to do that. My own strategy is I go and just talk to people.
Oh, okay.
Like, what songs do you want to hear? You know, just some walking past. It's like, we're going to start the show in 10 minutes. Who's your favorite singer? What's your favorite song?
Brilliant.
And then you get their name. And if anything, you're already connected from the stage. So I get up on the piano. This one's for Jeff. Jeff loves Dolly Parton.
No way.
And then they're like, oh, okay. they know Jeff from accounts, you know.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I'm like, you know, get up on the stage, Jeff. Get on the dance floor. And that's sort of just breaking that ice, that wall between the stage and the guests. These are people who have bought tickets to your show. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. So one of the things in this podcast is how we're able to, if we listen to other industries outside of our own, we can learn some tactics that you never would have thought.
Yeah.
Work in the room before the show. Yeah. I mean, that's unbelievable. You know, a lot of businesses are walking into rooms to put on a meeting, which I always and I tell our folks as well. I mean, this is a performance, right? You're looking to connect with people. You've got something of value, so that's good. You're not faking it. Yeah. But how do you connect with folks? And so much of it comes down to, what are they interested in? What do they want to hear? It might be different than what you want to tell them. And to hear you work in the room like that, and then doing the call out too. Yeah. That translates to me.
It's all about that connection, and people suddenly then can relate to you. Oh, it's like, I just spoke to him, you know, or they'll become involved. So I really make the effort. Or it's a fundraising event where the reason we are booked is to increase donations to whatever cause, charity we're playing for that night. So going to every table and really geeing them up for that.
Really?
And they're like, oh, play Piano Man. It's like, give me the $50 and we'll do it. You know, we're here for a good cause. Yeah. You know, and really getting them interested in the show.
I would love to hear a story about a fundraiser event. So what would be like an example, either local around here, one that you've done recently?
Oh my goodness.
Because that is unique to just hiring a band, having a band work in the room and help with, like, that's, you talk about delivering value as a business, like,
absolutely.
That is it.
I can't remember at what point we realized we could, like I said, we're not looking to reinvent anything with this. We're looking just to present it in its best, most streamlined, most entertaining way. I always think of, you know, the Steve Jobs, Apple didn't invent the MP3 player. Right. But there was a method that they perfected it and became you don't say MP3 player, you say an iPod, going back a few years, but you know what I mean. Totally. So for us, we're Howl at the Moon. So we're dueling pianos, kind of, sort of, but we think we stand alone in our own product, shape, whatever you want to call it. So in terms of fundraising, we saw these tip buckets on the stage, which has always been an integral part of this event. It makes it a lot of fun. I don't come from a tipping culture. I mean, if I'm from London, we don't tip anyone for anything, right? So coming to the States and seeing that, I'm like, what are the jars for? You know? Yeah. Really? So they're going to give you money to play the song. We also don't have it. We have a lot of coins and not many notes. So, you know, the dollar bill, the $5 bill. Right. Yeah.
That coins are shattering those.
Yeah. Well, you're getting hit. You're losing teeth. And you think, why do you not enjoying this? And it turns out they are. So just incorporating that tipping element into a fundraising show was brilliant. And we committed from day one, we will donate 100% of whatever tips, donations for songs we get back to whatever cause we're representing. Really offsets the cost of the show. It really brings the crowd together. You know, they're like, we know we're here for a fundraiser, but we get something in return. Right. Not sort of a cruddy silent auction. Right.
But that is such a differentiator, because I think people could assume, hey, we need to hire entertainment for this event. What should we do? Someone in the comp room says, "Has you heard of this?" Yeah. My friend, I was at an event, they did it. It's great, or whatever. But I think it's such a differentiator to know kind of the level. Like, it sounds like you really care about the event that's going on, and really making that an experience. It's not just a gig. You're almost treating it like the club performance, right? You're motivated for that to be an amazing experience. So people come back to the club and tell more about the club, et cetera, et cetera. And in this scenario, well, of course, you want it to be a good event so that people might refer you business. To hear that you're going around working the tables, trying to make the experience that they're giving to their guests that much more is very impressive. I think there's a lot of fundraising gigs to be had with a group like that.
Yeah, it's something you can't do with a band. It's something you can't really do with a DJ. I certainly can't think of an entertainment concept that's so easily aligned with raising funds, because it's already part of the show, you know? And it's fun at the same time. So their fundraising efforts don't stop at the end of the raffle. Yeah, you know, like now we've got a great show, but you can keep, and that obviously helps us book events too. And the cost is somewhat offset, and they get an event that people actually want to come to. The benefit of the Howl at the Moon brand and name, the history, is that doing those sort of community events, you get to use that in the promotion.
100%.
So that's been a real boon that I've heard back from the fundraising planners. Like, it's just cool putting a logo on there because our ticket sales go. Yeah.
People go, I've always wanted to see that, or I've saw that before. There's kind of an expected, and I think that's important too. So when you think about, you know, building a brand and delivering that experience, you know, it's not just a logo. It's everything, right? And I would argue to say yours is well established, right? But some of the things that's interesting to me is the more variables that you have out there, the harder it is for that brand consistency, right? So whether we're talking about from a marketing perspective and how do we market in Chicago versus one of the other cities, but then we get down to the individual musicians. You know, is everyone going around in the audience at the beginning? So my question is what are some of the things that, as you're onboarding someone into Howl at the Moon, what are some of the things that are said? If I was to say, here are our values, here's how we represent the brand, what are some of the things that come out of those conversations?
I think it sort of goes back to the stamina thing. It's like you can be a great musician, a lot of great musicians out there. You might not be right for this gig. We say that straight off the bat, partly the stamina thing, but also the willingness to put out that high energy experience from the stage does take not only physical strength and stamina that we talked about, but a willingness to entertain. Some of us musicians aren't always good at that. Right. You know, some musicians might even look at this and say, that's a sellout.
Sure.
You know, you're not playing jazz standards. You're not writing your own material. You're not transcribing, you know, Miles Davis. That means you're not actually that good at music. You're just regurgitating someone else's. But certainly we don't do note for note renditions. All of them have our own slant and personality, and the show is different every night, which is an interesting thing too that you might not get elsewhere. So I think for people coming in, it's a willingness to perform. Again, some musicians might say, well, I'm not doing that bit of, I'm here to play. I'm here to play the song. And that makes me think, I had a professor at music school who would always say, if Prince tells you to dance, you dance. You know, no one's beyond. You know, yes, you might be great at the guitar. You might be great at the bass, but you have to perform. And there's a reason why Prince didn't sit on a stool with an old T-shirt strumming Purple Rain. Like he wore feathers. He wore purple. You know,
100%.
He danced. He did the splits. He flew. There's a reason for that. It wasn't to cover any deficiency in his musical or songwriting ability. It's because he wanted to do a show. I mean, you look at anybody. Great. James Brown. You know, we talked about Dolly Parton before. Freddie Mercury. Mick Jagger. They don't just stand and sing. The whole thing is a show.
Absolutely.
And I think putting that big stage show onto as a little stage with not celebrity performers, you know, but the whole show itself. You know, we don't know the names of the Cirque du Soleil performers, but as a whole experience, it's really cool.
We
know
know
when it works and when it gels.
That is so cool. So, question for you, and then we'll transition to kind of your role. But are you still playing gigs?
Oh yeah,
Really?
I love it. Yes,
I actually didn't even know that.
Yes, so. Yeah, I was just. Well, we have such a varied group of clients. Yeah, I just played a retirement party a couple of weekends ago. The weekend before that was that Black Hawks game I talked about. I still travel, slightly lesser these days.
Yeah.
But early on at Howl2Go, I would be out to 100 plus shows a year.
That is awesome.
That
is impressive.
Actually, 100 way plus, actually, because it was definitely every weekend, Friday and Saturdays, a lot of weeknight shows.
Yeah.
And many nights we'd do 2 if we could swing it. If it was all downtown.
Yeah.
So I remember one night playing a wedding reception at the Renaissance over here on the river,
Sure.
and then running across the State Street Bridge, going way up the American Medical Association Tower to the Langham.
Yeah.
And doing a late night dance party thing. We had 2 separate rigs, 2 lots of pianos, 2 sound systems. I had all my guitar, the separate guitar rigs. Everything was just done in duplicate. So now we do that, 12 times a night, if you like. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I don't personally play as much, but I think that it's important to open it up to new young players. I'm about 20, 25 years into a performance career.
Right.
So I think my personal role now is to recruit, to train, to help young musicians get into what logistically is a very stable gig, but it's a really fun one.
Yeah.
And you can take your own path, choose your own adventure.
That's awesome. So I want to dive into a little bit of the day-to-day job that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And I will I'm hoping you get to take some mornings off after those late night gigs. But run down, kind of your role within Howl2Go, and I like asking the question, what's something you spend an extraordinary amount of time on?
Oh, wow, that is a good question. So from our very humble, small beginnings in a very small office on the top floor of this building, I have a wonderful team now. We have a head of production who oversees all the logistics of putting baby grand pianos into conference centers and hotel ballrooms and people's living rooms and nightclubs and bars all over the country. We have a sales director who really handles the bulk of the bookings. We have a dedicated wedding specialist who spends her time, because booking a wedding show is only the beginning of the process for when we're going to play at your wedding. That's a show. We play a wrong note or say a wrong thing will be remembered for a lifetime.
Oh yeah.
So we have someone who spends their day just specializing working with brides, working with wedding planners, working with event venues to make sure that wedding performance goes off without a hitch. And we cover the ceremony and the cocktail hour and the sound system during speeches. So we got a lot on us for that. We have people involved in scheduling, and we have our regional entertainment managers who handle things on the ground in each region.
Yeah.
One based San Antonio and Boston and Orlando and Kansas City. And so we have guys who are in place overseeing on a local level what's happening.
Okay. How many people is that, by the way?
I don't know.
But a lot more than back when it was just you.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then your role within this, obviously you're doing some performances, but is it orchestrating all those people? And would love to know just kind of a little bit of what the rest of your day looks like after this conversation.
Absolutely. Gosh, I think the thing I enjoy most about this job, and I'm at 17 or 18 years at this point with Howl at the Moon.
Really?
Yeah. And I love coming into the office because my days are so varied. Other than running payroll on Monday morning.
Sure.
Or dealing with insurance documentations or stuff. Every week of mine looks completely different. One week I might be working with a new performer. I might be assisting on a deal to install our show in a casino in Atlantic City or a theater in Florida.
Right.
Or we do a lot of military events. through one of our partners. Logistically, understandably, that's a complicated deal. That's not the same as booking us at the Elks Lodge
Right.
in the suburbs. This is a highly secure. There's an awful lot of
like on base and that sort of thing.
Yeah, we do a lot of those.
Really?
Yeah, we were just at Fort Knox last week. The week before, we did the thing at West Point, New York. We travel to a lot of bases out in Kansas and in Texas. That takes an insurmountable amount of paperwork, unbelievable amount.
I can only imagine.
Security clearance,
yeah.
for base access. We also actually did a tour last year of a lot of American Air Force bases out in Europe. We played Germany, we played England, we played Kosovo. We were all of it. So those sort of special events, so specialized, that tends to be where I get involved.
Yeah.
On the logistics side of it. Being involved in the rebuilding of our website has been a huge part of my day. I had a lot of support in that from your team, of course, but writing content for a website, creating meaningful, useful ideas for design, and and I'm also involved in overseeing the cruise ship division too. So every day is completely different.
Well, and by the way, cruise ships.
Yeah, that's I really enjoy that, because there's definitely a challenge in producing 600 on-ground shows a year. Definitely, there's a whole different set of challenges when there's a boat in the ocean. 365 days a year, we don't get a week off. Those boats are always going, and our show is always on it.
Oh my gosh!
Four times over. So we got 365 times 4 ships.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful challenge. During COVID, even more so. But just dealing with, it's a stressful environment for performers to be locked on a ship sometimes. So there's a little bit of therapist, there's a little bit of mediator, very rarely, I gotta say. But keeping everybody happy, and every crowd is different.
Yeah.
So just making sure we're doing everything to attach the show to that group. So a lot of the time when our booking lead, Kyle, sends me a contract, I'm looking for patterns. I'm looking for, have we played this venue before? Were there any challenges in logistics? Have we played for this group before?
Yep.
Let's pull some demographics, some crowd size, some notes from a previous show. Has this client got a theme we should go with? So I'll do a quick search, because clients won't always remember to tell us it's a Mardi Gras themed event. And we show up.
So with Halloween costumes.
Yeah. We're like, okay, we didn't know. So I do a lot of that background peddling just to try and smooth out and make a client or a guest go, they really gave this some thought.
Yeah.
They're not just taking the check and showing up. They're really involved. And we're so lucky. We get to play for very small local businesses, fundraisers. And then the next night we'll be playing actually for Heinz Craft. We're doing a huge event for them next week.
Wow.
We get to play for Starbucks and Coca-Cola and all of these huge name chase. I can think of hundreds of them that you see in day-to-day life, and you're like, that's cool, because they booked us.
Right.
But equally important when we're dealing with these small companies who want just to give their teams, their employees, a great holiday party.
Yeah.
Or a retreat in the summer that's just something really special and fun. They all matter just as much, and we give the best show and most connected show that we possibly can.
Yeah, it's I never, even now, we've talked about the business a lot recently. It didn't really hit me, 2 things. One, how accessible it is, right, to work with the small businesses and all the way up through your Heinz, et cetera. But then also the breadth of it. Like, I was not aware of the military base. I was not aware of the international gigs. I knew of the cruise lines. I probably could have kind of glued this thing together. But I mean, that is a mega operation. And so, and I know that there are different hubs. We talked about that today. But I want to talk about Chicago a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? So we're sitting in Chicago. We're sitting on a pretty popular nightlife scene in Chicago on Hubbard Street. Would love to learn a little bit about, if I was to say, how does Chicago and the community kind of play into what you're doing here?
Mm-hmm. What a great city, first of all. I landed here. I think when I came to Chicago, all I knew about it was what I'd seen in the Blues Brothers.
That's a good reference. I like
Wayne's World. Yeah, two
And
movies
Wayne's
I watched as a young boy growing up in a field in England. I'm like, that looks cool.
Yeah.
You know? And then finally getting here, it's a wonderful city with a great history of music and that Midwestern willingness to have fun and have a good time.
Yeah.
Which you don't see in some other cities where I've performed.
Yeah.
You see quite a jaded, distant crowd. There's nothing like playing in Chicago or Detroit or one of these cities for a good crowd. This particular spot in Chicago, Howl the Moon's been here for so long. It's sort of part of the culture.
Yeah.
The furniture, the makeup of this city. And it's amazing how many people being on this end of it, my end of it, like we met at Howl at the Moon. Oh, when? 2004. Like, good God, 20 years ago. These people came here on a date.
Yeah.
You know, and now we're playing their wedding, or I don't know, their kid's wedding.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And I think we did achieve that separation from what dueling piano bar should we go to? Because there's plenty of them in Chicago, even now. There used to be more. But
sure.
As opposed to, we should go to Howl at the Moon. It did become its own entity. In terms of Chicago, I mean, there's no better spot for it. And I think a lot of Howl at the Moons over the last 30 years, some have come and gone. The city hasn't had the capacity, perhaps, to maintain for a significant period of time. Some surprise me that we can have a 20-plus-year-old club in Louisville, a 20-plus-year-old club in Kansas City, Orlando. All of these clubs have been here for so long. I think you can go to anyone on Michigan Avenue and say, what's Howl at the Moon? Or have you ever been to Howl at the Moon? It's like, oh yeah, I did. I have been there. I know it. Or I saw them at an event. My company booked them for a holiday party, which would have been Howl2Go. And then they decided to come back to the club.
Yeah.
Because they haven't been here for a long time. Like, that was fun. We got a taste of it. We got a 3-hour, let's have a girls' night out. Or let's have a golf talk after our playing golf. Let's go to Howl at the Moon and go check it out again.
That's unbelievable. So, and then, so I totally agree. So the community is, well, I mean, I'm a little biased, right, from around here. But so I love hearing the people are accepting, the crowds are great.
Yeah.
Also, where we're sitting on Hubbard Street. So I think you said 18 years you've been with the organization.
Yeah.
And I know that the Howl the Moon, specifically this location, predates that. But I kind of take a look at some of the other environments. Is there the location that you have within the city, is there anything that kind of plays into that, you think?
That's a good question. I'll tell you about a theory I have.
Love it.
Okay. I believe the most successful, the owner, Brad, who I've obviously worked for a long time, will laugh if he watches this. I produced this theory and I've kept on with it over a number of years. And every now and then I'll send him a deck, what I think is proving this theory. The most successful Howl the Moons were within walking distance of a Hard Rock Cafe. That's been proven time and time again.
I walked past it on the way.
Yeah. I'm a huge believer in that. This area, you just have cool. First of all, you have a lot of hotels.
Yeah.
Which I think is a huge thing. We're not a regulars bar.
Sure.
You don't come in every Thursday night, or it's not a neighborhood bar.
Yeah.
It's not a dive bar. It certainly has an attraction to people visiting Chicago from somewhere that isn't Chicago.
Yeah.
Perhaps isn't as cool. Perhaps doesn't have the nightlife.
Right.
Perhaps does, but again, this is Chicago. So we're surrounded by these enormous, really world-class hotels. We're surrounded by world-class restaurants. We have schools here. We have conferences coming in. And I think it's to be applauded. I think that the location hasn't moved. Mm-hmm. Like, we haven't quickly blown with the wind. Like, Wrigleyville was redeveloped over the last 6 years, I suppose.
Sure.
It would have been, I think, easy for the decision to be made. Let's move the club where the where all the noise is, where they're causing a lot of upheaval and renewal and growth, and let's quickly throw it in Wrigleyville. But then 2 years later think, oh, this should be in the West Loop. We've got to be on Fulton Market. We can't go anywhere else. Like, that's the hip, cool,
right,
place. It stayed right here, and there must be a reason why, people come back. My thought is that it's close to a Hard Rock Cafe. There's lots of other, we're 3 blocks off Michigan Avenue here.
Yeah. What I'd like to know is Hard Rock Cafe saying, we got to open up next to those Howl at the Moons. We keep doing well.
Well, they're always here.
There might be a
mostly
Tommy
first.
over there.
Yeah. I like to believe that tracks, that follows.
Yeah.
Our Louisville location is next door to a Hard Rock Cafe. I bore people regularly with that theory.
Yeah. No, I love it, and I love that it's remained in this area despite other areas kind of spiking up, because this is a healthy part of the city. And I'll say it has been here so long that I have used it as a reference, or people have used it as a reference to me to tell me where something is. Sure. We're going over to so and so. Where is it? Oh, it's over by Howl at the Moon. I know where that is. Yeah. I think a lot of that has to do with also your logos out there, and it just seems like everyone has been here once at least.
Yeah.
If you've been around in this area of Chicago,
I think there's something of a historic precedent for long-standing institutions, if you like, on the street. You look at O'Callahan's, I think, was here before Howl at the Moon.
Sure.
I don't think they would be offended. There's no frills. It's just an Irish themed pub. Yeah. But it's really good. Yeah. And people love it, and it's always busy. Yeah. And there must be a reason how they've managed to survive when so many haven't survived. There's Mother Hubbard's on the other end of the street, right at the corner of State. They've survived generations, decades. Yeah. That Rossi's around the corner, which is a Chicago gem, I think, institution, something very special. Where else can you get a drink at 7 a.m.? Right. Rossi's is there, and it's stayed there, and it's survived. And I think it's brilliant. And I don't think that makes us or those other businesses like a relic or a fossil or anything. I think it's because we remain current and interesting and fresh.
Oh, 100%. Like there's and that's just an awesome thing about even the shows that you're doing is I know what to expect, right? So you've managed that aspect of the brand, but it's not the same thing that I saw 20 years ago. Right. So you've been able to kind of grow with the times. And I also think it's fascinating, specifically Howl2Go. So I was talking with Wendella Boats was on the podcast, and amazing episode and a lot of Chicago history come out of that. But one of the things that Andrew had said, we were talking about COVID, he's like, you know what? I am so connected to this city, which is wonderful when it's wonderful, and challenging when it's challenging. I can't go move my river to a different place. Yeah. And a lot of times you look at establishments that are delivering something that's so specific and so what has been created here in this club. I think it's genius to take that on the road, because that's in effect is a way to put it in other places, and kind of insulates a little bit of that and gets more people having exposure to it.
And as you know, this location, our national head office is right above us, right on the floor right here. So I mean, we're committed. And
why is that, by the way? Why Chicago?
I don't know. I think it came with the club. I think the option to lease the office space, and that's been the headquarters of the company 20 plus years. Yeah, right here, and what better location too? Right, right. It's a cool spot for all the reasons we talked about. But get moving. It is funny. We find ourselves doing Howl2Go shows at the House of Blues, right around the corner. Sure. Or we'll be we'll be playing at Lowe's Hotel, or we're playing at one of the local, any event space, which is the cool thing about Howl2Go, will fit pretty much anywhere, and we're within walking distance of Howl at the Moon. And then people tend to come to the club afterwards and carry on the party and the show. So that's always been a fun element of it.
That is awesome. So we've covered a lot. Like to know, kind of looking forward, what are some of the trends that we're seeing? What are some of the shifts, some of the things you might have had to adapt to as a business, right? We're post-COVID.
Yeah.
I feel bad that I still have to reference COVID, but we're all still kind of feeling we're either different businesses, if we're still in business since then, maybe made some shifts, changes, and then some of us are seeing a return to what it might have been in 2019 and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What are some of the big changes that come to mind in your world?
Gosh, what a great question. I mean, I think I didn't have an awful lot to do with it, but navigated COVID in a smart way. Our CEO and his team were determined from day one, said, we are going to stay closed as long as possible, which was a really interesting strategy and one that made me think for a minute. I'm like, why? Why aren't you desperate to throw open your doors like everybody else?
Yeah.
His thought was, as soon as they open, they're going to have to close again. And the expense and the logistics of bringing everybody back in here, like firing up the beast again, stock, rehire, all of that stuff, throwing open the doors only to close them again a week or two later, is wildly insecure and wasn't going to. So from the very first day, he called all of us and was like, I'm going to stay closed as long as we possibly can till this thing is done, however long it takes. We're not opening. We're only going to open when we can do it at absolute full capacity. We're not going to do some watered down show and a limited menu and not have everything firing on all cylinders, which was a great strategy as it turned out. We didn't get like a half-baked version of Howl2Go coming back.
It's how you preserve. I mean, I feel 90% of our conversation has been talking about the consistency of the brand and the experience. And that's you're right. I've not heard a lot of people have that strategy, but it's extremely intelligent because no one has walked into a Howl2Go and seen a dilapidated experience.
Right. He was a big believer in that, and it turned out to be true. I mean, a lot of places you can name them, so can I. Yeah. That went really hard to throw open their doors, and that's what took them out. Yeah. That's what killed them. Wasn't the actual shutdown. It was the 3 false starts that they blew on, and tragic, really. But there was no playbook. We didn't know what we were doing. It's also a great way to tell. But no, I think it also speaks something to kind of the business acumen of the organization too, in preserving the brand. Not all brands were able to do that type of a thing, right? Yeah. They had to open the doors 100%. For a little bit, 100%. Which is I like how it sounds like he phrased that, as long as we can. Oh yeah. Right. So there's still kind of a degree. There was going to be a cutoff point. Yeah. In the same phone call, he said Howl2Go will come back first. Before any of the clubs open, you'll be back in business and get moving. And sure enough, as you remember, that was the March of 2020. And as we got into May, outside events were all the rage. Right. When you could, as soon as you get up. So we called that the return to IRL. Yeah, from right. URL. Yes. Yeah. And, all of us were a bit nervous. We're like, are we even going to have gatherings in the same way as we used to in the before times, So doing those outdoor spaced events was a great way just to get the machine running again. We were safe, but doing those like socially distanced events but getting the gear out. So we were back up and running in 2020 for these outdoor shows when the weather locally allowed for it. We did some really fun, like street parties, and people were on their lawns around a cul-de-sac in a subdivision, and we had a stage set up, 2 pianos like 15 meters apart, and did a gig, and it was cool. That is awesome, and something I'm always envious of your business in particular is that you're a business, so you're looking to book a deal, right? Revenue, all those things, hiring, firing, salaries, all that type of stuff. At the end of the day, your product is for them. Yeah. It's for others. And so it is cool to hear, while I'm excited that Howl was able to get back out there and do some of those shows, it's pretty amazing what that did for the people in that audience who have been locked behind their computers. I mean, they're going to be talking about that forever. That was one of their, probably many of them, one of their first, like I remember what this was like. Well, just saying that, you're quite right. So I got with our team very early on all of whom rely on live performance for their livelihoods,
Yeah.
And we were talking, and a lot of musicians, and it worked really well for them, pivoted to virtual shows.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come and see me on Zoom, or I'm doing a live stream, or all of that. We sat down in a group, and the main question was, are we pivoting to virtual? Unanimously, everyone was like, no.
Yeah.
We're not doing it. Let everybody else do it. Let them have it. It's not the same.
No, it's not. Yeah.
And consequently, you'll see on our new website, there's almost zero video.
Yeah.
Because we're the only company that can, oh, you want to check us out? Come look at us. We're everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, you live in Orlando? No problem.
Yep.
You can see this in real life. Try before you buy.
Right.
And conversely, with Howl2Go, you see us, and then you come to the club. You know what to expect.
Right.
So we refuse to do any live streaming, virtual shows. We turn down every plea, every offer of virtual shows, because it's not, the atmosphere is 90% of this performance, the environment.
So much of it is interactive too with the audience too, and I think that's, you mentioned the magic before, which I've experienced it, and I know how to play a lot of these things up here. So speaking of the magic, the question is there, I don't know if I want to say secret, or what do you think is a common misunderstanding about the business from the general public?
About Howl2Go?
Yeah.
A misunderstanding. I should know this.
That sounds like a negative thing. An example would be everyone goes and learns a songbook and comes up here, and if somebody makes a request that's in the songbook, they play it, and if not, they fake something else, right? That would be a misunderstanding.
I mean, a misunderstanding from some of our inquiries and our leads that we're a recital. Yeah. Because they haven't been to the club before, they're like, oh, it's 2 pianos.
Yeah.
And, they think we do classical bass, two piano fortes, playing against. Or another, actually, a more common one, is that they think we just duel. Yeah. And one piano player plays faster than the other piano player, and it culminates and climaxes in this huge explosion. It's like, you can't do that for 3 hours.
Right.
You have to start really slowly. And what on earth would you play? So I think the biggest mistake, which was made long before Howl2Go came along, was calling it dueling pianos. It just doesn't work. It's a stupid name. And doesn't explain what this is at all. It's really just in its simplest terms, it's a interactive cover band. Yeah. A human jukebox, or whatever you want to call it. Dueling pianos, I've had some disappointed people. Wait, so you don't duel? Yeah. Oh, what do you mean? Like with swords? Or like musically duel? No. I mean, we'll bat off each other, but really it's one supporting the other and then one supporting the other. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's a misunderstanding. Yeah.
It's funny you say that. I think the first time that I was invited to go to Howl2Go, and it was for a happy hour party, which I know is a common first entry point. Mm-hmm. And someone's like, "Oh, you'll love it. It's dueling piano." I thought it was going to be two like Victor Borgas sitting up here cracking jokes at each other, and which would probably also be wildly entertaining. Mm-hmm. But I was blown away with just the interactiveness with the audience. With it's always impressive when somebody makes a suggestion and the band just crushes it. Sure. And a lot of times in blending it into another song and things. The musicianship is second to none in these establishments, which is why I asked a lot of questions on that. Yeah. Awesome. So kind of wrapping things up, I like asking this question. I might have asked you this before. But given your role in the company, given the business, given the things in front of you, if someone was to hand you some extra budget, okay, $5 million, here you go, Tommy. Okay. What would you do with that?
What I'd do with $5 million to expand or build Howl2Go. Gosh, what a great question. I mean, truly, I'd probably give $1 million to each of the team that run this, or, or split it up into every performer who's, something Howl2Go does incredibly well is retain. Yeah. People remain very loyal to this company. There's like 20, I'm not the only one who's been here nearly 20 years. There's a massive number of people who have been here 20 years. I think part of what keeps us here, we don't even notice the time going by, but it's the opportunities to expand and grow and learn within the business. So, I love playing the piano. It's my first love, but I'm not doing it every night anymore. And I've been given the opportunity. It's like, sure, events, figure it out.
Yeah.
Go do it. Like, learn how to do it. I think so many of us started as bartenders and now they work in accounting or marketing. It's like, there's so few opportunities to get there. So I don't know, I just divide it up between everyone who works here, because I don't think there's a big investment that we need to make or that anyone would want to make. I think the future for Howl2Go doesn't involve massive financial investment. It involves a little bit opening up our product line slightly. So we're building our tribute shows program. We've got this Billy Joel and Elton John tribute show. We have a couple of the best impersonators I've ever seen. I've seen the Billy Joel and Elton John concert live myself. I've seen them both do it. I've seen both artists individually, and these two impersonators we have with the costume changes and the grand pianos and all that. It's so cool, and that's something we're launching this year, because there are groups, I don't know why not, who maybe don't need Howl2Go twice a year.
Sure.
Or they don't, not annually. They have to give something slightly different, but they like the idea. They like us.
Yep.
We're already friends. We already work together. They like us enough. So I think offering that tribute show is going to be a great start.
That is brilliant.
So splitting up, not completely getting away from what we are and what we know. There's still the two pianos.
Sure.
We're working on a headphone howl concept, rather like headphone disco, where you have silent shows.
Yeah.
You have your channel selector, so you can pick one piano player or the other, and you're tuning in and dialing into whichever performer on the stage. So they're things we're working on for this year. So
that's exciting, and I love hearing the variations too, because I could see anyone who books you to come to their event, I'm convinced they're going to say that was awesome. Mm-hmm. And it almost feels like the only reason not to book you again the next time is because, well, we already did that, right? Sure. So, and there's probably a lot of people that do book it every year because it's awesome every year. But I think that variation is great. And I want to go back to the $5 million question, because I think it's a question that I ask often in this podcast. And what I find is the response, because I didn't prepare you for that, right? Sure. Is you get to the essence of what either the individual or the organization really kind of values. And so to hear you say, back to the people, I'm sure there's people having thriving careers here. Yeah. It's not to fixate it, but it shows just how important and how much you value that is your product, right? Is your people.
100%.
So it's very meaningful to hear someone in a leadership position in an organization for that to be the first thing, right?
I believe it. Just as a gift, as a thank you for, staying, being here. That it's wild. I think there's very few businesses that could claim that longevity, and because again we're allowed to develop and learn and grow, we're not just stuck in that same rut. We never get stuck in that. So yeah, absolutely, I'll stick with that answer.
Well, good job.
I thought about a new van too. But
new van, maybe some cooler gear. Oh, they have nicer boxes. Those are pretty nice. Well, awesome. This was incredible to learn even more about the business and yourself and your role in it. I just think the product you're putting out there is amazing. I've got a musical background, but also, there isn't a single civilization in human history where music didn't play a significant role in it. It's important, right? The arts are important, music's important. And when you're doing it at a level of this quality and making it this accessible, it's a major contribution to kind of everything that's going on in culture and everything else. So, Tommy, I really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
It was exciting. And cool. All right. That's that. This is the other awkward transition. What do I do with my
hands? It is,
Awesome. Well, I think
thanks, Ted. Appreciate it.
That was awesome.